Sage Financial.
A very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. Today is Wednesday, the 25th of August, 2021. I am Valentine Ohu.
And I'm Ayon Myro SA. Good morning, and thanks for tuning in to Freshly Pressed 981.
It's a segment of Smooth Breakfast with both of us, and we're joined by analyst Devo Okorie. Hi, Devo. Good morning.
Good morning, Lagos. Morning, Val Lakunle Eku, who stole our defense.
All right, Lakunle Yusuf, good morning.
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Devo. Good morning, Lagos.
Welcome. You can send messages through the usual channels. YouTube.com/SmoothFM Lagos is live. You can watch and subscribe to the channel. You can also send through WhatsApp.
0809 444 All right, let's go on to our first story here, Devo. Unfortunate news from Kaduna State. Shock, anger, troll Daredevil attack on Nigeria's elite military university. This day newspaper reports. We have the report that the military university, Nigerian Defense Academy in Kaduna, came under attack in the early hours of yesterday. This left 2 officers killed and another in the rank of major abducted. News emerged this morning that unfortunately the officer that was abducted, the major that was abducted, was found dead, and that's Major Datong. Those killed are Lieutenant Commander Wula and Flight Lieutenant Okoronkwo, and like I mentioned, Major Datong. So many things to say about this. We have reactions in already. Like you mentioned, who stole our defense? We've had stories of bandits, terrorist attacks, kidnappings. To find that this is happening, almost like a slap on the face of the military at a top military university, is a cause for concern. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Devo, and also some of the responses that have come forth since the news broke.
Yes, and let me just first start saying that I think this story is even more important than a lot of the stories on the list. 2, I will not be as kind in my reportage because you see, it's one thing to report these things, it's another thing for the country to take action, because it's not a slap on the military, it's a slap on the nation. As Nigerians, the military, that are brothers and sisters who work in the security forces, that individuals who have broken the law and become criminals have gone to the extent of penetrating the inner, or what do you call it, the core of our defense capacity. Now, let's start with one, the name calling, what we call it. It was reported, as we saw in the release from the DHQ, that there was a security breach by unknown gunmen on the National Defense Academy, which compromised the security architecture. No. There was not a security breach. There was an invasion, 1. 2, it was not by a non-gunmen or by some who reported as bandits. They were terrorists. It's about time we begin to call them for who they are, because what you call something is what defines the approach or the response to it. You still call them bandits? You're still calling them a non-gunmen? Now, from the reports, what did they do? They attacked, what do you call it, the NDA, about 1 a.m. in the middle of the night, in disguised with military uniforms, got in, shot, killed 2, and then abducted 1, of who, and escaped. And that's the part I need people to get. Not only did they shoot and kill and abduct, how did they still escape? I mean, were you sleeping through the whole thing?
Well, it did mention that the officers who were manning the closed circuit camera CCTV.
Is it only those officers that are responsible for the defense of an academy? Now, they said, yes, those officers were asleep, but by the time the attack has started, the military do have their protocol to these things. Nevertheless, that officer that was even kidnapped by the name of Major Datong, many knew by his name that he wouldn't last. And there's still unconfirmed reports this morning. I don't know if you read
What
it.
does that mean?
That he had been found.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Yes.
Please clarify the last statement.
Yes, the last statement by his name, because many have attributed some sectional, what do you call it? Some sectional approach to this war. All right. So this was heard yesterday. So it's not a surprise that this morning we're hearing that he's dead. after even hearing a ransom of 200 million was requested for. Now, the gall, the audacity. Now, the NDA is close to the College of Forestry, that Afaka, that was already attacked, and they had abducted 39 people earlier in March, right? Now, what this means in this affairs is that there's no sacred territory, no rules of engagement honored at all. They've gone from worship centers to schools to hospitals to women and children to police theft. Now, I mean, if there was a way to create an analogy, let's get the Taliban of Nigeria already in power already.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
what? Now, my
No,
point
hey,
there.
no, hold on. No, no. I need you to
I
verbally retract
I
what you just said.
understand.
No, no, no.
what
It's
you
not
have
about
just said.
understanding. Just retract it. It's a very dangerous statement to make on national radio.
Okay.
Please.
Yes. My point there was simply that it looks as if at the frequency at which these attacks are taking place and insurgency is stretching all over the nation, it seems as if our country is at the losing end of this. This is not a war that I would call technically degraded. This is not what I would call that we have reduced their presence or their capacity. Now, remember, these same terrorists some months earlier shot down a fighter jet, okay, a military fighter jet. They ambushed MRABs, about 2 to 3 of them, in the northeast, and those are very expensive, powerful military capacity tanks.
Sorry about
Let's
that.
take a breath. Sorry about that.
Condemnation has come far and wide by different sociocultural groups, from citizens themselves. The governor, that's El Rufai, who had, I believe El Rufai is already in a state of petrified already, because I mean his state has gone through series of attacks. Although he has been insisting that the army or the military carry out kinetic responses, attack these people, kill them. His position is a complete polarized position from the Borno governor, who is seeking the endorsement of the presidency for the surrendered terrorists, because he believes that anything, he would give anything to stop the war or the insurgency in his own region. Now, what do you call it? Even there was a case of the wailing and the crying of the state's House of Assembly members because of the state of security. Now, what's the response? Obviously, the army has put out a manhunt, which some feel might be a little too late. Some are calling for the sack of the NSA, that's Mongono, and Nigerians are outraged, terrified that if the military can't protect their own formations, can they really protect Nigerians? Now, my review is simple. Okay, I'm not surprised. It's not new. Why? Because the signs of a weak security architecture had been there all over. I mean, do we start naming all the cases? Now, the military, we know, is already overstretched. They're in 34 out of 36 states on different issues. So it's of course, in such instances, they would be susceptible. It's not a surprise that they were able to compromise their own architecture in their own domain. Now, if the military is at this stage, do we really have a story about the police? What can the police do? Is there any hope for them? Now, the security strategy with the new security chiefs at this point is in question, because, I mean, when you start hearing issues of plans to rehabilitate or to take in terrorists that are surrendering, you kind of question not only the anti-insurgency law, you also question the legality of our own laws. That is that the approach that the country has agreed to in addressing this matter. That if those who commit lesser crimes are treated with harshly according to the law, then how come those who threatened our sovereignty, our safety, and our sanctity of life given a slap on the wrist? Now, the two, and this is the one I up to date I don't understand. Prior to this time in this country, about 10 to 15 years ago, for lesser issues, we had what you call the state of emergency, when you see that security has gone beyond the usual ability to contain it. You call out, you move for a state of emergency, and that's when the military moves in fully to be able to gain it back. Why hasn't a state of emergency been called back in Kaduna or Zamfara?
Oh, well, we haven't heard a response yet from the president or the presidency.
Another point, why hasn't he
Yes,
spoken?
he hasn't spoken yet.
How many hours after?
As at press time, he hasn't said anything. We'll be looking forward to hearing a statement from him, as I'm sure he would do this morning. And once we see that, then we'll be able to analyze his response. Well, thank you very much for your passionate analysis, Devo. Let's move on to our next story, shall we? And I'll come to you, Lakuni. TED Fund to disburse 292.6 billion naira to select varsities, polytechnics, colleges of education, according to the Vanguard. Some select universities and institutions, like I've mentioned, across the country will get that sum in intervention fund from the Tertiary Education Trust Fund. This report breaks down that the money had already been approved, and it's just to release the funds, and describes what these funds will be used for by the beneficiary universities. Please take us through the story, Lakuni.
So it's some form of good news as far as I'm concerned. We heard the story and the agitation by everybody, students, lecturers, parents, about how badly the universities are funded, why they go on strike all the time and all that. Now, so this money, 292.6 billion, will go to select universities. Don't forget. Okay, let's go back. Let me backtrack a little bit. Pet Fund. It's is an outcome of a report by what was popularly called the Grelunge Commission report in the 1990s that recommended that companies operating in Nigeria should pay some form of tax to fund tertiary education in Nigeria. That was, I think, in 1990 or 1992 or thereabout. Now, the government of the time now said 2% of profit before tax of all companies operating in Nigeria will go to that fund. Right. So in, I think, 2011 or thereabout, there was a Third Fund Act that gave back to Tertiary Education Fund, the current one, to administer that fund. So universities, polytechnics, all public tertiary institutions are to apply to Third Fund for funds to improve infrastructure. They are to apply. Lecturers are also free to apply for research grants. Every Nigerian student in a public institution is also eligible to apply to Third Fund for scholarships. Okay, so those are the things that the funds that they have are supposed to be spent on. Now, this money, what I would just have known, I said that Sami, which is deserve to be given this money at this point in time. According to that list, I see that OAU was giving 1 billion naira for fencing. And so the challenge now is to the universities, the beneficiaries, the tertiary institutions that are beneficiaries of this, to make judicious use of this money so that they can make better claims to more funding. I mean, you don't want to get 1 billion naira and be showing a 100 million naira worth of infrastructure improvements. The improvement that you will show to demand for more should be commensurate with the amount that is being received. So that is what will make the argument that the universities deserve more funding very, very tenable. So basically, that's just the bottom line of that.
Thank you very much. We have a number of comments to get through.
Yes, we do. This is a message. Please add your names. Benga, your name is not here. Please add your messages so we can read them. Judge from Okoko Michael says the attack on the NDA is disgraceful and shameful all at the same time, but it also shows the unequal treatment that Nigeria gives the South. The same soldiers that can beat young boys and girls for wearing camel in a certain area can't cough when their institute is attacked. Let's not lie. All right, we'll move on from that one.
Dako from Ijoa says NDA attacked by bandits. 2 people killed and 1 abducted. Confirmed 2 people killed. It's a big shame on the government of Muhammad Buhari. NDA in Africa is like the Sandhurst Military College in the UK, where all this movement is leading to looks very dicey and diabolical. Heaven help and assist planet Earth.
Tayo says when we sugarcoat our problems with words like technically defeated or non-government bandits instead of terrorist daredevil actions like this shouldn't surprise us because government is sitting on their hands.
And then we have from Joseph saying it's becoming more obvious that our security agencies have been infiltrated and have moles, because it's difficult to believe that an ordinary person would have such guts to plan and invade the academy. Let the government wake up, issues, and stop audio noise on irrelevant matters.
Fabian says, may the souls of the dead military personnel rest in peace. Amen. The invasion has great implications regarding the safety of the country. If the government fails to respond decisively to this, there's no longer hope in them. We'll take a brief break. We'll be back for the remaining stories inside of Freshly Pressed 91.
Imagine a life with zero worries.
You said?
Yeah, but I can't drink it now. It's on
Yeah, and I need hot water. Okay, thank you. Sorry, can we take story 7?
7.
The tourism issue.
Okay, so, Val, you want to drink water before you come back? Just outside the door.
We're coming back now, though.
Let him have, it's better than him choking.
Yeah.
So just take comment.
You're listening to Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Thanks for watching on YouTube. I'm sure you see all the interesting details there. And in the meantime, we have your messages coming to WhatsApp and YouTube, youtube.com/SmoothFM Lagos, WhatsApp 0809
4440981. We'll go to our next story on the tourism
industry. So, this is a story from the Punch newspaper. Nigeria's tourism industry lost 770,000 jobs due to COVID-19. That's a release from the information provided by the World Travel and Tourism Council. They said, first of all, the regional director of the World Travel and Tourism Council, Andrew Brown, stated this in a statement that was made available to correspondents. He said that before the outbreak of COVID, travel and tourism accounted for 330 million jobs worldwide, and was projected to rise, by to about 440 million by 2030. Are we well within this target, or COVID has really decimated it?
Well, that's the word. COVID has done a number on the whole world because of what it is. It's the biggest threat to social living as human beings, and one of the industries that has taken a major hit is the tourism industry. Tourism is at the heart of my own professional existence, and it covers aviation, it covers travel, it covers hospitality. Okay, now the World Travel Tourism and Council was speaking through the Nigerian Economic Summit in releasing some of these figures, and they said about 770,000 jobs, 100,000 jobs, that's about 800,000 jobs were lost due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And at this time, it's almost a 2-year gap. Now, while speaking in this method, they said about 330 million jobs worldwide, etc. But let's bring it home. Now, with the 700,000 jobs lost, one thing people need to know, because most times people don't give it the right regard or credence, is that tourism, after agriculture, is actually the highest employing industry. Okay, and that after agriculture, you have tourism, hospitality, and then entertainment. These are sectors that most people don't really give much regard, but these are the sectors that are actually creating jobs in volumes for our youths, who are largely, the unemployment issue in Nigeria is at a chronic level. Now, remember, the FG did say that it would lift poverty elevation within about 10 million people in 10 years. However, this issue with 700,000 jobs, about 800,000 jobs being lost, this dearly affects their capacity. So the NASG was speaking about how they were looking at sustainability plans. Now, one thing I need people to understand is, because we experience this, first of all, those within the tourism sector are not able, because of regulations, they're not able to operate fully, right? If you notice, most clubs, lounges, and hotels, due to the COVID-19 protocols, cannot maintain 100% capacity. Now, that's one level. Secondly, because we didn't have enough already. Secondly, revenues are attacked, and this is why many of them are shut down, or they minimize, they scale down on staff, or they completely can't even operate at all.
Yeah, but one would say that the most affected industry is the aviation industry.
It's still within the travel and tourism industry. So everybody within this level. Two, because of the protocols you have to go through, like the other day, usually I just hop into Ghana and back. Right now, I was told I can't hop in anymore.
No. So now what happens is you hop into like centers, right?
Yeah, but my point is,
approximately 4 tests.
yes,
back
4
and
tests. Now,
forth.
those 4 tests, apart from the time wastage, you have the financial implication.
Yeah, a big boy,
50,000
so,
to
yeah.
do the first test before you go. You do another test when you land over there, another 50,000.
Before you leave
Before
there.
you leave, you do another test,
And then
and
when
when
you
you
get
come back
back,
again.
about
So
10
that's
days
about
after.
200,000 naira just to hop into Ghana.
Like I said, you're a big boy, so you can afford it. How about people who can't?
So in country, this is also an issue because people won't travel anymore. Social distancing fears, and so I need you to actually have a heart and feel for those within this industry. They're really taking a hit,
Absolutely.
and we're hoping that we can put our minds together to find out a sustainable, operational opportunity to keep this industry afloat because it does bear the bulk of our youths.
Please, does anybody know when this test will be? I mean, the price could possibly be crashed or be made like not compulsory for travel.
That's the state governments.
Yeah,
how
I
soon?
think we have to even start with vaccinations.
Is that,
Oh,
is
yeah.
the
that
cost
again.
the costing is actually in the hands of the providers of the service.
Mm.
It's not even the government. The government's own is free
No,
for
no,
now.
no,
Even
no,
now,
it is. It's in the hand of the government.
In the hands of the
Yeah.
government.
you mean the government would legislate for the?
They don't
No, no.
legislate, but from what I understand, there's a central
System.
collection point
Yes.
where they all report. So it is determined for them. If not, you would find it probably more expensive on the island than it is on the mainland.
Exactly.
For instance. But it is. I remember I was speaking to one of the personnel, the health personnel, and they said that it is a directive because there's a fee they have to remit to the state government, and so that is fixed.
It's a government, it's a framework designed by the government. And even if you do an independent test, you can't use that to travel. You have to take a test from a government accredited private or public center.
Okay, so let's move on to our next story here. And money mismanagement. Reps threaten to halt CAC budget over financial irregularities from the Premium Times. The Corporate Affairs Commission risks not having budgetary allocation as the House of Representatives Committee on Finance has directed the Budget Office to suspend the budgetary process for the agency pending an investigation into its books. So here's why it's happened, right? It said that the Commission failed to defend its expenditures from 2016 to 2021. So the money, the CAC, people pay money to the CAC for a number of things, registration of businesses, filing of documents, and so on. They haven't remitted these amounts for 5 years. Beyond that, when they look at their books, they say that they've been giving themselves pay increase every year, or at least pay increase in allowances every year, and it's increased. And so they're saying you're not remitting the money you're supposed to remit to the government. We're looking at your books. It looks like every year salary, you haven't recruited new staff, by the way, but salary increases. So it's funny but not funny. Please take us to
It's a good place to work, eh?
At least you're guaranteed annual salary review.
Increase, yes. Actually, lost for what?
It is the story. I actually took my time to read the entire story, and it exactly describes the anyhowness that Nigeria is becoming every day. We take this anyhowness to higher levels every
English
day.
word.
Sorry, when you look at that story, 5 years, no report. I'm not sure in my adult life I've seen the income and expenditure account of the federal government of Nigeria before. It is supposed to be a public document. Even if I've not even seen it myself, I've not heard that go to so website or go to so office. It is there. So it gives you an idea that because even the people, the practitioners at the various agencies know that there's nowhere that is mandated that they must submit this thing for collation to be presented as a public document. They themselves don't bother to make even the ones they do. Now, look at the statement by the representative of CAC. He says, it seems quite strange that we have spent more than we are generating. That is really not the case. It is because of the accounting system used by the agency that was creating the perception of discrepancy. That is somebody who works in CAC. So before he went to the National Assembly, I would assume that he's in the finance department of CAC itself. So his name is Ibrahim Gano. So imagine that kind of statement from somebody who should know how money has been spent inside that place. Now, what happens to the IFRS standard of accounting that the government announced that we adopted in 2018? 2015 or 2014, what happened to it? So, because everybody knows there that I can do anything and I can get away with it. There is no punishment for this impunity. That's why we keep having this kind of events everywhere in government. And then you ask yourself, does it make sense if you make 10 billion, as one of the years said, and then your salaries only, or rather the expenditure is 13 billion? So where did you find the 3 billion, the 3 billion excess that you spent? I mean, so those are the questions that have to be asked. I think that the House of Rep, they have done the directive they've given, even to the budget office, don't have any dealings with CAC until they've presented line by line report of every expenditure in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I think it's a good one. So it's now left for them to follow it up and not find a political solution to it. Somebody needs to account for how this has happened.
You know what's good about this story? This is the fact that these questions are being asked and they're asked to defend the spending.
Yes.
You know, usually you wouldn't hear of these news because nobody has been called up, you know, to defend this, you know, these monies spent. So that's actually
That's why it's important that it should not be a
right.
political solution.
Yes, that's why it's a step in the right direction. So it's not all doom and gloom. Hopefully, there will be results coming out from this inquiry. Now, let's move on to the Punch newspaper for this story. Devo, 16 persons have been arrested for alleged traffic robbery violence in Lagos, according to the Punch newspaper. It said it happened around Iyanasele and Yanasolo on the Oshodi Mautu Expressway on Tuesday. That hoodlums, all some persons described as, fomenting violence, took advantage of a protest that was going on that axis. Please give us the highlights of what caused the protest in the first place and what possible punishments could await these hoodlums.
Well, the protest was a short-lived one because of the road signs that were put up. There was, because of the construction taking place, there was road signages creating a one-way. So some truck drivers, they have an odd, irregular routing in that place. Sometimes some drivers do follow one way to get into some sides of the road. However, the task force, that's the Lagos State Environmental and Special Offences Unit, they were on ground to apprehend about 16 persons who took advantage by molesting, in some cases violently, pedestrians who were on the road. It's a short story. However, yes, we also give the Lagos Task Force kudos. I think the issue far outweighs these reports in the sense that right now in the Lagos metropolis, everybody is aware that many of our go-slow or traffic jam locations are hazardous, dangerous, unsafe. I mean, and you're speaking of issues of early morning, as early as 5 a.m., when people are rushing to the island, all roads facing the island, at all the bus stops that are jammed. If you check your map, you will see those zones. So as far as in the afternoon, from Ikeja, Main to Alimosho and Co down to the island, everywhere blocked. And since as we know, this is what month are we in? This is August. And the Nigerian police force, who are friends, are good friends, have not fully resumed since NSARS. So you have a lot of spots that are actually unprotected. Yes, we give government kudos that they put up some security personnel on the expressways, but what about the highways? What about the inner routes? And this surveillance should not only be during the traffic during the day. I've also seen Akmangbo at night.
Yes.
If you're going home, it's unprotected. What do you call it? That Isola, the Mautu zone, has been dangerous from not today. Even many people, especially at that Mautu, when you climb that interface, there's nobody who can protect you in that zone. So either your car breaks down or they ambush you there. Nobody's going to be there to tell the stories. So I really need Lagos to step up, especially in this time and season, because with hunger comes agitation, okay? And with unemployment comes more agitation. So at some point, we need to be able to protect ourselves to ensure that our economy in Lagos is not,
But
devastated any more than it is.
You hit the nail on the head based on that last statement you made. Hunger breeds agitation, unemployment, because most of these young people,
These touts, these hoodlums,
will not be on the roads if they have jobs.
Right.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much, Divo. We're out of time. Tayo Naja says, under law, CAC is supposed to publish their financial statement on a yearly basis, but no, they never do it. you can't tell that great lapses are occurring in that. You can tell that great lapses are occurring in that agency.
All right, we'll take the rest of the story of the messages that we got on WhatsApp and YouTube in 9 minutes actually for Lagos Talks 981, and then we'll open up the phone lines for you to call. But we'll have a special today, the big debate on a very particular issue here.
Yes, we're looking at public officials or public servants, as they ought to be called, and their awards. Do you think that to improve our education and health sector, as you know, desperate times call for desperate measures, at least one member of your family should be in one of these institutions? Should we ban foreign travel for public officials? That's medical tourism. Let's hear your thoughts during Lagos Talks 91.
Thank you, Divo. Thank you, Lakunle. Good morning.